What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you a budget gaming PC build solution for around $250 to get you through the tough times. But before that, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe down below, and thank you for watching. Before I begin with this video, I really appreciate it if you go ahead and hit the like button down below. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps the channel and I appreciate it very much. Now, I'm sure that everybody is well aware by now how hard it is to build a gaming PC. With the prices being so outrageously high, especially on the graphics card, it's becoming harder and harder to build a good budget PC that would even compete with today's next generation consoles. So in this video, I'm going to show you a budget solution that cost me around $250 to get you going, and with the capabilities of upgrading down the line. Now, this is going to be one of my many upcoming episodes. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now, the different resources that you could use is eBay, Craigslist, and maybe if you're lucky enough, Micro Center. And if you're really accessible to these three locations, then you should really have no problems of finding good deals on used parts. Now I'm going to start off with the case first. That's how I started this build. I really like this old case. Now it's about 10 years old by now. It's a Zalman Z11 Plus mid-tower. And I really always like the way it looks. The front of it kind of looks like Optimus Prime. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this case. Now, I did a little bit of modifications with this, and it's something that I do suggest for everybody to give it a cleaner look. This case did come with two red LED fans, front and rear, and I cleaned them up, running real nice. Gives a really nice look, nice and clean. So what I did was I removed the front hard drive cage. Now, a lot of the older cases, they have these hard drive cages that are not removable. So what I do usually is use a flathead screwdriver and a hammer and kind of bang out the rivets that are held by them. Now, by doing that, you really don't damage anything, and you hit them at a right angle, they pop right off and the cage removes and gives you that nice, clean, modern look, since all the newer cases don't even have anything in the front for that airflow. So really getting good airflow with this case. And for $20, this case is really worth it. That's how I started this build in my mind, starting off with this case. Next, this case has the two side panels, front and rear. They also came with fans on each side door, and you might see it right there by the front LED fan. You see that area right there? The side panels came with the fans. Now, I really don't like side fans, and again, all the new modern cases don't come with that because they're really in the way, and I hate the wire sticking out. It's a pain in the butt, especially when you're trying to take off the side panel. So I removed those, and now we're getting really good airflow as the air just comes out of the sides. Very nice and clean. Now, for the platform, I have this old motherboard by Gigabyte, which is a P67A UD4 B3, and I have an i7 2600 with this build here. Now, this motherboard is overclockable, and I have the processor overclocked to 4.2 gigahertz, along with 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM running at 1600 megahertz. That was only RAM that I had laying around. And I was able to get it running at that speed, 1600 megahertz, with the XMP profile. Now, I had this combination with the cooler here, which is also made by Zalman, and it's a nice copper cooler. It really keeps the temperatures low, and at this 4.2 gigahertz overclock, the temperatures are fantastic. I just cleaned it up. Really like this tower cooler, this old copper style look. It's really nice. Now, I was able to get this part A while back, this combo, somebody was selling it for about 80 bucks, so I scooped it up with the envision down the line to build a nice computer. And yeah, so now I finally put it together. So next, I have the power supply here, which is made by RaidMax. This thing is old, probably 10 years or older. And you know what? It still works good. I don't have no issues at all. This is a weird looking power supply, 630 watt. It's supposed to be semi-modular, but I never seen anything like this. That's how old it is. The modules actually continue on from the cable. Now, I got this thing for very cheap, for about 10 bucks. And it was missing quite a bit of wires. So, in this case, I only had one Molex connection and one 6 and 8 pin for graphics card, and that's it. And the other 3 or 4 are missing. But I was able to utilize that power supply to save money with just those connections. So obviously for GPU we have enough. We have a 6 and an 8. Actually, there could be 2 8s. I have the little side connections on them. So you could definitely upgrade the graphics card here. There's enough power. But when it comes to the connection for the SATA, what I did was, since there's only one Molex connection, I got the adapters from Molex to SATA. And I needed a total of 3 for this build, because this case was missing one front panel, and I had to put a DVD drive. Now, this happens all the time when you buy used stuff, and you just want to kind of utilize things as much as you can, and to fill up that gap so the build looks nice and clean. So I have a DVD drive in there on purpose, because I am missing the one front panel. Next, on top of that, I have an additional 250 watt hard drive, just a standard SATA. That's right there, and I had to use an adapter for that from 5 1/4 to 3 1/2 to get a hard drive in there, or you could always Velcro it on top over the DVD drive. And believe it or not, that this old computer here, old case, had the opening on behind the motherboard for an SSD drive. So my main drive, 128 gigs SSD drive, is in the back, connected nice and clean. I was really surprised for an old case that they even had something like that. So that really gives it a nice clean look. And you could buy a boot drive, 128 gigabyte SSD drive, just your standard one, 2.5 inch, for around 20 bucks easily. So that's going to be your operating system. And like I said, I have the additional 250 gig hard drive for extra storage. Now, of course, you could get it for another 10 bucks. That's something like that you could get. Now, of course, you could get a, 1 terabyte for around 30 bucks. You could do that too, but in this case, that's all I had laying around, so that's what I put together. Also, as you could see, you got the 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM running at 1600 megahertz in dual channel. This motherboard does go up to 32 gigs, but 16 gigs is more than enough for this build. I'm very happy with the performance here that I was able to get. And of course, the main prize here is the EVGA GTX 760 2GB graphics card, and that's around $80 to $100 usually on eBay. It's still a decent card. It's still going to be better than any APUs out there, and you should be able to run most of the games low to medium settings on 1080p. And that's what I'm going to show you soon as I test out some games. So overall, I'm very happy with this build, and it's something that you could really do if you just keep your eye on some good parts and put them together. And it's still, I think, a pretty decent experience. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the build. If you guys have any questions, leave some comments down below. It does support USB 3.0 in the front. This motherboard and this case does have the connections for that, so that's running pretty good. What else? I have 2 additional 120mm fans on top to get that really good airflow. So this thing has really good airflow. running really cool, and I'm gonna show you temperatures while I play some games. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into some gaming, so stay tuned for that. Alright, so the first game I'm going to test is Cyberpunk 2077. This is a very hard game to run, so don't expect a lot of FPS here. So I'm going to start off with a 1080p. Let's take a look at the settings here. Let's see what we got here. .1080p full screen. Graphics on the lowest possible and at full scale resolution. That's about it for 1080p. Cannot go any higher on that. And this is the kind of FPS you could expect to get with this graphics card. Now when it comes to this game, and just about any 2 GB graphics card, it doesn't matter if it's 770 or maybe a GTX 680 2 GB, you're not gonna get more than 28 to 30 FPS at the top tier cards. With this game, 2 GB just doesn't do well at all. But nevertheless, the game is playable and it looks pretty nice on the lowest settings. Of course, if you want to get up to 30, you would have to change the resolution. That's what we're going to do next. But still, you could see that it is playable. Not the best, that's for sure. But it is possible. And I think when you get inside the city, you might get a couple of more extra FPS in some areas. And remember, like I said, with a PC like this, it's not a dead end. Remember, an i7 is still an i7, even though it's 10 years old. A 2600 i7 is still good. It'll play any game. And it'll work with any graphics card. That's right, any graphics card, RTX, GTX, doesn't matter. And you'll get really good performance. Now, of course, the bottleneck you'll see always on 1080p. But once you go up in high resolution 1440p and 4K, you'll be just fine. But you see that I'm still able to run this game real nice. Averaging about 24 FPS, pretty good, I would say. And this is the open area. You're gonna get a little bit less FPS here as always.
Hello?
Come in. Come in.
What? I had to find... Jackie...
Alright, now let's jump into the other resolution to get to that 30 FPS. I'm gonna go down to 1366 by 768. Keeping the graphics settings on low, again at full scale resolution. I'm not gonna be lowering that because it's still playable without doing that. So here we are. Oh, look at that. It's a little higher than I thought it would be. Let's see what we got here. And really, like I said, any graphics card will work with this. Depends on your power supply. Now here I have a really cheap 630 watt power supply, which is not rated or anything. So really that's comparable to maybe a 500 watt rated power supply. So in my case, that's going to be my limit for a graphics card, around 500 watts, which is still not bad. So here we are, we're going to be averaging around 30 FPS. Now the game is a bit more playable, and it still looks good at this resolution. You could even go up to medium, but you'll drop down to mid to high 20s. Opa. Alright, well, that concludes the test for this game. Let's move on to something else. But you could see it that an old card is still holding its own. So let's go to the next game. Alright, here we have Resident Evil 3 Remake. An excellent game. It runs pretty well with this card. So let's take a look at the settings. As you can see, DirectX 12, 1080p normal rendering mode. We are just at the threshold here. And as you can see, we have 1.96 gigs available, and we're 1.84 right at the max. You could go a little higher, but these seem to be really good settings in my mind here. And we're pretty much, you could say, medium settings. This is what we got here. Combination of good graphics and good performance. .1080p, and that's what I'm going to leave it on, just this setting here, just to show you that you could run this game around 60 FPS average easily. And also give you an idea with the new Resident Evil now out, the Village, you're definitely going to get at least this performance with this setup here. GTX 760 still a really good card, and like I said, around $80 to $100 available used. Good value in my opinion, especially over like a GTX 1050. You know, performance around there, but the 1050 is pretty expensive, or like a 1050 Ti. Those are really expensive, and you definitely don't want to spend $300-400 like on an RX 570 used. That card really should be around 80 bucks. Well, there you have it. So you could see this game runs really well. And look at the temperatures here. I mean, that's fantastic. That's why I love to restore old parts, you know, clean them up, change the thermal paste, get the good airflow, and you could achieve these temperatures, and that's really good. Everything was working properly. Really good results here. So okay, that concludes Resident Evil 3. Let's see what I got next in store here, so stay tuned. Now, of course, as always, if you watch my channel, my videos, I really like to test out Battlefield 5 on all my builds, and here's no exception. Running pretty good. Let's take a look. We're going to be at 1080p full screen, motion blur off, and we're on medium settings. Very nice. GPU restriction off, VSync off. This card performs real well in this game. You could expect, you know, around 60 FPS on average. Runs real smooth. This is definitely not the hardest game to run, but also not the easiest. Uh-oh. Better run. Now, in case you haven't figured out by now that I am using my camera to record the gameplay here, and for some of you who might not understand why, especially with the lower end hardware, in order for me to show you, you know, the best possible results, the most accurate FPS count, and that's the way you're gonna do it, because I can't even imagine how much FPS I will be losing using the, you know, NVIDIA Shadow Play or whatever else, whatever other software to record this benchmarks. So that is why. And again, you're here to see the video not for a nice gameplay, but for the, you know, for the best results that you could expect. And you could see that this game does perform pretty well on medium settings here, and that's those settings that I will keep. It's going to be really your sweet spot on 1080p. Real enjoyable, no skipping, real smooth. Alright, that's it for Battlefield 5. On to the last game to be tested in this video, so stay tuned for that. Alright, so here we are finally at the end of this video, the last game, Fortnite. And the settings I'm going to use here are 1080p, lowest preset full screen, unlimited frame rates, 100% full scale resolution. These are my settings here. That's what I recommend. And these are really good settings for competitive play. You should be getting around 100 FPS with good visuals. You got DirectX 11, motion blur off, VSync off with the NVIDIA Reflex low latency boost, and allow multi-thread rendering since it is a multi-core processor. And here are the FPS you're gonna get. Real nice. Really kicking butt with this setup here. Oh yeah, and I did forget to mention, all the games I've tested here are installed and running on the just a regular basic hard drive. That's right, SATA hard drive. So in case you're wondering, you're on a budget, you don't have a lot of money to spend on a huge SSD, you really don't need it. All you need is a 120 gigabyte SSD for 20 bucks for your operating system. And then you could get a big storage, 1 terabyte, 500 gig, whatever your budget is, just on a regular hard drive, and that's all you really need. And it's not gonna decrease your performance on games, just the loading time. And yes, if you're wondering if you have the operating system on the small SSD with your games on the hard drive, yes, the loading will be faster than if you had just a regular hard drive like a terabyte or something. For your total system, the loading will be really slow on that. Again, you will not lose performance in game, but this is really the way to do it, a combination of two. The loading is better, not as good as if your entire system runs on SSD, but definitely the performance is there, and that's the way to go. So as you could see, this system really kicks butt, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Stay tuned for my other videos. I have a whole bunch of old hardware that I want to put together for different setups I have. And hopefully I'll get some time to do so and make some good videos for you guys. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.